I want to bring into the conversation Congressman Adam Schiff. He's a Democrat from California and a member of the House committee investigating the Capitol riot. Congressman, everyone watched the riot a year ago with our own eyes. Your committee is set to start a more public phase soon. How soon is that going to happen?
Well, I think it'll happen in a matter of weeks. And we want to tell the story, from beginning to end. We want to tell it in a coherent and clear way. We want to push back on this effort to revisit history, revise history, to continue the big lie. But we also want to make sure that people are held accountable and that we legislate in a way that protects the country going forward. But I think you'll see us start to put those together in the next few weeks.
What makes you think they're going to be held accountable? Even if this airs in prime time, we've got a country so divided, people don't believe what they see with their own eyes. How is watching this in prime time going to change anything?
Well, you have a good point. As one of my colleagues, Mike Quigley, said, and I think he put it so well, it used to be that people would say, I'll believe it when I see it. Now it's more, I will only see it when I'm ready to believe it. But we have to hope, and I believe that there still are millions of Americans who are open to the facts, who don't have a closed mind, who are not so siloed in disinformation world that they can't be reached. And so it's enormously important that we try, that we put good information out before the American people, that we write the definitive report on this terrible chapter of our history so we can make sure we don't repeat it.
I guess it just takes me back to that definitive Mueller report that was filled with so many things that didn't actually resonate or make their way to the American people. Why do you think it'll be different? Trump's former press secretary, Stephanie Grisham, talked to your committee last night, but she also wrote a tell-all book about her time at the White House, and it hasn't changed anything.
Well, I think you're right. The Mueller report didn't change many attitudes because it really wasn't brought to life through public hearings. I think that was one of the failings. We did have, obviously, 2 hearings with Bob Mueller himself. But what we really needed was, I think, to bring forward the actual witnesses to those events. But many of them were part of the, both indicted and unindicted co-conspirators. In this case, we have, I think, many witnesses who are cooperating, who will cooperate, who will participate in open hearings. That first hearing that we did with those Capitol Police officers, for example, I think was very powerful in pushing back against the lies that was somehow a normal tourist day with people there to embrace the police when you heard what those officers went through.
How about former Vice President Mike Pence? I know you'd like him to speak, but the likelihood he's going to do it on his own slim. How long are you willing to wait before compelling him to do so with a subpoena?
Well, I don't want to get ahead of the committee. Look, I think he has good reasons to want to provide information to our committee. He was someone they were hunting to put on a scaffold. And he was also someone who was a key witness on the subject of this campaign to coerce him to ignore his constitutional duty. If anyone should have a reason to share that experience with the American people, it ought to be the vice president. Now, again, what his personal future ambitions will do to color that, I don't know. But this is a moment where we need all Americans to put patriotism first, and that includes the former vice president.
In some way, is it also a day to celebrate the strength, or at least acknowledge, not celebrate, acknowledge the strength of our democracy? Despite all that happened and the big lie and the insurrection, democracy held.
Democracy held, and yes, we should cherish the fact that it did. But I have to tell you, and it's with a very heavy heart and deep alarm, we are more vulnerable today than we were a year ago. After that terrible day, I thought, finally, now that people have seen what a terrible end Trump and Trumpism and all the big lies have brought us to, finally now we will see the Republican Party repudiate that, return to its roots as a party of ideology and ideas. But that didn't happen. They decided instead to double down on the big lie and double down on the big liar.
I'm sorry. I just need to interrupt. President Biden is speaking. We're going to listen in.
That's the thing that bothers me most about the sort of attitude that seems to be emerging to some degree in American politics. It's not about you, it's about me. That's how it's viewed. But it's not about me. It's not about whether I'm president or she's vice president. It's about the system and about somebody who decides to put himself above everything. And but I did not want to turn it into a contemporary political battle between me and the president. It's way beyond that. It's way beyond that. That's
Mr. President, more than it heals, sir. Does calling him out provide more than it heals? You've talked so much about healing, sir. Healing this country.
No, look, the way you have to heal, you have to recognize the extent of the wound. You can't pretend. This is serious stuff. And a lot of people, understandably, want to go, look, that was unacceptable. I just as soon not face it. You got to face it. That's what great nations do. They face the truth, deal with it, and move on.
Mr. President, has anything changed in this country a year on? Has anything changed in this country a year on?
Before we go, I do want to ask, though, former President Trump was supposed to give a press conference today. He didn't do it, but Steve Bannon is doing it in his place. Mark Meadows and Steve Bannon have been held in contempt, but Steve Bannon is out there continuing to push the big lie day in and day out. It's frustrating for the American people.
Well, it is frustrating. And of course, more than frustrating, it's dangerous that these people continue pushing that big lie. And no more destructive than the big liar himself, Donald Trump. Still out there, even if he was silent this morning, we'll be soon back issuing false statement after false statement. I was glad Joe Biden called him out today. I was glad that he was as forceful as he was. We can't mince words about the danger to our democracy, and that danger is posed by that former president and the lies that he is spewing. So I think we saw a very powerful address by Joe Biden today. I think it was heartening to hear that vigorous defense of democracy, and we all ought to view this day as a day of awakening.
Congressman Schiff, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I appreciate it on this historic day.